put your hands together for the late morning program with your host, Namarasa.
Hey everybody! This is Namarasa at the late morning program with Namarasa. People wanted me to do an intro, so I'm doing an intro.
You really couldn't get through the whole intro without cracking up. This is going to be the longest hour.
Thanks to all my viewers for watching. I'm here with Venkata Bhatta, aka Vineet Chander, aka my brother-in-law, the guy who married my sister. How's it going, man? It's good to see you. How's everything?
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
Nice. I just want to tell you that I hated you until you bought me the Mahabharat DVD set for my birthday. It was my 16th birthday or something, and I was like, this dude is, I don't know about him. Blah blah blah.
You hated me.
Okay, maybe hate's a strong word. I disliked you.
Do you begin like every one of your podcasts just telling your guests how much you despise them? You're like, welcome to my show. By the way, I hated you. How do you think that's supposed to make me feel? No, seriously, you hated me. Why did you hate me?
Well, okay, I was like 14 or something. My sister was like 19. She's always out of the house. She's like always on the phone. My dad's yelling at her. I'm trying to go on my DSL internet, and whenever she picks up the phone, it cuts out.
I remember you.
All the young people listening are not going to know what that is.
They have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah,
right?
no idea.
That's a serious thing, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have a modem though. That was like.
No, we had modems.
You did.
Yeah, but anyways, back to my point was that I didn't like how she was always out of the house and how she was like kind of with someone and always hanging out with you, and then like I don't know.
Because you guys were close, yeah.
Yeah, we were close. And then there was this one birthday where I was like, all right, he's coming over. He's going to give me a birthday present. And then
you actually hated me.
Yeah, I disliked you.
Because this whole time, like, I thought we were like boys from the beginning.
No, not. Yeah, until that time, until that day when I opened up the gift and it was the full B.R. Chopra DVD set. Do you understand? DVDs back then?
Yeah, no, that's
were
huge.
like huge.
I remember that.
No YouTube, no nothing.
No, I remember getting you that set. I didn't know you hated me, but I remember just really wanting you to be happy and wanting to make a good impression. And I knew you guys were close.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the hate part, but I knew you guys were close. And I actually really admired you, and you were young, but I think even then you were kind of a, I don't know, like I could tell, like you were just like a really great person. I really respected you. I respected you.
I feel bad now.
No. I don't think I ever told you this, but actually, the first time I ever really had a meaningful communication with your sister, I actually thought it was you. Did I ever tell you this story?
No,
I
tell
didn't
me.
you this. So I met your sister when I came with a group of youth from the New York Temple back in the day to do you remember this? We did like a little youth program in the New Jersey Temple.
I totally remember this.
And
in the sannyasi room.
In the sannyasi room.
Yeah.
Right. And I spoke, I gave a little talk, and then afterwards, I don't know if you remember this part, but I gave out my email address.
Yeah.
And invited anyone who had any follow-up questions or who wanted to ask something personal or, to drop me a line. And the next day, I check my email, and there's this email, right? And it's this really thoughtful message asking for advice. This person was going through some issues with a friend who was kind of straying, getting into some destructive and self-destructive behavior. And the person writing the email really wanted to know how they could be a good friend to them and help them to keep connected to their spirituality without like turning them away or being judgmental. And I was super impressed. The thing is, the email address, you guys used to share an email address, I think.
Yeah, we did. I remember it was Mahesh G, my dad's name.
Yeah,
Mahesh G at Juno.com.
That's right, Juno.com. I think the email address you had before that was probably like 1397442_7 at CompuServe. This is like so easy to remember, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like Hare Krishna, spelled HareKrsna, like 179 at AOL or something.
Right, yeah.
But I get this email address, or I get this email from Mahesh G.
Yeah.
And I'm reading the message, and I'm picturing you because I remember meeting you. I think we had met each other a couple of times.
Our first time meeting, remember? It was DC Rath
It was
Yatra.
DC Rath Yatra. I remember, and I remember you. I remember being struck by. Here is this kid, and for the viewers out there, you may not you may not know this or remember him as such, but there was a time where Namarasa, you were kind of on the shorter side.
Yeah.
But you had these like huge glasses.
That's my logo, actually.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So it was exactly that picture, right?
Yeah,
It was like the big glasses, sort of the big Ganesha ears, like the triple, quadruple strand, Tulsimala, Kantimala, right? And big, bright, perfect tilak. And I was like, wow, this kid is like, straight from Vaikunta, right? And you were like, I think the first time we met, you were like asking me about Radhanath Swami, and we were talking about Radhanath Swami. So when I'm reading this email, I just automatically assumed it was from you.
Really?
And the whole time I'm reading the email, I'm like, wow, this kid is so thoughtful. He's so like, and I start to feel like, I'm like, wow, am I like falling in love with this kid? And then we get to the end of the email, and it's like,
from my sister.
She wasn't initiated at the time, but she was like, your servant, or, your friend, Ami. And then I was like, oh yeah, it's the sister. It wasn't the brother. And obviously at that time it was quite innocent, but we just started, I wrote back, we started pen paling each other. We became friends. We became really close friends. And then we both realized, we had feelings for each other. But in a very real way, I feel like, right from the beginning, I feel like you were there as part of our relationship.
Oh, that's nice.
So fast forward to this birthday, I really wanted to reciprocate with that feeling and get you something that I knew you'd appreciate. I knew you were this huge Mahabharata fan. I loved the B.R. Chopra Mahabharata series when I was growing up. That was like probably the one thing that connected me to this tradition, and it actually inspired me to pick up the Bhagavad Gita. It inspired me to learn more, about the whole culture and the tradition and the history and the epics. So I saw this DVD box set, and I thought, okay, that's what I'm gonna.
That was such a turning point in our relationship.
I'm so glad, man. I'm so glad.
Then we definitely hit it off. I was like, this dude's awesome. He's
so glad
a stand-up dude.
It was either that or like a Target gift card or something. So I'm so glad I went with the Mahabharata.
How long you been married now? I can calculate, what, 2002 or something?
It was 2003.
Wow.
So 15, man. 15
years. How's that been?
It's been incredible. I have to say, I know it sounds a little bit, like cliche or corny, and like it's kind of cool. Like, I don't know if you've picked up on this, but in certain circles, and I think, not to be too controversial, but I think within like the ISKCON kind of Hare Krishna Bhakti community, there's this thing that I've noticed where sometimes it's kind of cool to like bag on being married. Have you ever noticed this? Like sometimes like, someone will be giving like a Bhagavatam class or like a lecture, and they'll like throw in a couple of like marriage jokes and stuff. And it's like, it's almost like it's like cool to be a guy and just to be like, oh, like marriage is such a drag.
First there's engagement ring, then wedding ring, then suffering.
I haven't heard that before, except for 5,000 times. Right? Like, yeah, but that's exactly my point. So I feel like there's almost like this like social pressure to just be like, oh man, I've been married for 15 years. I can't wait till he takes sannyas or something. It's like, no, man, like actually these have been the most incredible 15 years. They just get better and better. Like, I feel like with each year you're like more and more comfortable, which has its challenges, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But I think there's something like really sweet about it. Like when you reach that point where you are connecting to this other person in such a deep way that like you're just being so real, and you can just be so real with each other and just share in the good times, the bad times. Like when you're like earlier in a relationship, right? Valentine's Day is coming up, right? Early in a relationship, you like go through like all this intense, like meditation on getting each other like the perfect gift. Yeah. And then you get the gift, and it's like the person may or may not like it, but they're not really being real with you. They're like, oh, I love this. I always wanted, whatever, a cow salt shaker, and inside she's just like, cow salt shaker, like, right? So, but not that happened. It's a lovely salt shaker.
That's Tulsi's absolutely favorite thing. Yeah, she wanted it in the shot actually.
Yeah, no, I'm glad it is. Yeah. It's just, bad example. But you got my point, right?
No, I understand your point, yeah.
Let me tell you, honestly, this actually happened, right? So we exchanged like Christmas presents in our household. Like, we celebrate Christmas to an extent. And this year, I kid you not, like, this is actually what we did for Christmas. We got each other like a bunch of gifts, because we like doing that, right? Mm-hmm. Krishangi and I, we got each other a bunch of gifts. And then Krishangi went to the store. Actually, we both went together and like returned like 80% of them, right?
Oh
Because
my
when you're
God.
married, when you've been married for like 15 years, you guys share like bank accounts. You like share credit. We have like one of those like joint credit card deals.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you're buying someone a gift, but you share a household expenses, so you know how much stuff costs. And like for us, the greatest feeling was going and getting like $97 put back on our credit card. Like that's when you know you've been married long enough. When
Yeah.
like a date night is like, let's go to the store and get $97 put back on our credit card. Merry Christmas, right?
Well, did you have to like how did you come to that like view or that the way you look at marriage in that way? Like did you come to that on your own by reading something, or was it just by experience? 'Cause people can be jaded by it, or some people can be like not have a good experience and just like go, roll with the punches type thing. But what I'm hearing from you is that you're learning you've learned from it, and you've learned to make yourself better. You've learned to make your wife a better person in the relationship. So did that come automatically just by your own wisdom or something, or how did that?
I mean, God, if I waited for things to come by my own wisdom, then we'd be so screwed, dude. I can't even
Not
tell you.
wisdom, but like your own experience.
Well, some of it is experience. Some of it's experience. But I think from the beginning, and this, I have to say again, like, I know it may not be like the cool or popular thing to do, but like I have to really give Krishangi like the majority of the credit for this, because I think from the beginning, she especially inspired me, but I think both of us really approached the relationship with this idea that, at its core, it is this friendship, right? Like
Right.
for us, that's our story. Our story is, I think it's been incredibly romantic. There have been like incredibly romantic moments. So I'm not taking away from that at all. But ours wasn't this like whirlwind Bollywood romance,
Right.
as much as it was this like very deep, meaningful, in some ways unlikely friendship, because we're just so different from each other. But because we have that friendship, that like heart to heart connection where we're genuinely well wishers of each other, where we're genuinely like trying to make each other better, and appreciating that our partner is there to like allow us to be our best selves, right? Because that's at the core, I feel like, and there have been, there are ups, there have been downs as well, right? There have been challenges. But I feel like when that's at the core, it's allowed us to use that as the platform upon which we address all those challenges. We examine everything that we have to examine. And like, right? You've been married for 5 years now, right?
Yeah.
You and Tulsi, from your own experience, when you have a partner, when you're in a partnership, particularly through, marriage, which is such like a sacred bond, your false ego is really like on the line and on the limb and exposed in all sorts of ways, right?
Yeah.
And like this is one of the things that I think is such a blessing about marriage, but it's also such a challenge, is here's this person that's constantly holding up a mirror to you and constantly being like, look, here are your anarthas. Here are those things within your heart that you have to work on if you're going to make spiritual or emotional growth.
Definitely.
And I think when you're in a position like that, either you can get really scared and freaked out and just be like, get that mirror away from me. And unfortunately, I think that's where a lot of relationships do fall into, a lot of relationships do go sour. But I think there's always that option to remember, like, this is such a blessing. This is such grace that I have someone that can hold that mirror up to me in a way that no one else can. And I think when we approach it that way, at least we've found, Krishangi and I have found, God does amazing things. Christian does amazing things through us and through our relationship.
I think that takes a certain maturity to see that, though. Like, because, if you don't see it that way, you're just going to see it on the base level, and then you'll say, this person doesn't get me, or make some excuse about what the relationship, like how it's going, So it takes a certain maturity to see that. And I think if you're blessed with that, or even if you get that wisdom from somewhere else, that this is the way marriage is, it's not going to be perfect, the people are, your partner is going to be constantly, like you said, a mirror to your, what things you have wrong with you and stuff. So I think it takes a certain maturity for sure. But
I mean, it does take that maturity. I don't know, when someone's like, it takes maturity and wisdom and things like that, it's like, I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, like, thank you. I think that's
right.
I mean, I want to take that very graciously as like a compliment.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think, like I'm not going to do the whole like, like, no, Prabhu, I am the least mature. I am less mature than, worms in stool. We're so immature. But I think also, maturity is so tied in with age, and I think something does come with age. I don't think it automatically comes with age, but I think age, and experience coupled with at least some tiny, sincere intentionality and desire to and openness to grow and to learn. I think it does wonders, right?
Yeah.
And for us, and I know this is not everyone's experience, but for us, we also one of the things we go back to is on our wedding day, which you remember.
Yeah.
I think by then you stopped hating me and you watched the Mahabharata a couple of times, and we were chill by then. But
Well, you did get me that kurta for the wedding. Do you remember that?
I do. Oh, okay, yeah, that's true.
Okay, so
Yeah, you got to tell that story, then we'll come back to tell that story.
So they came back from India from the wedding shopping, and they're like, here's your kurta that you're gonna wear for the wedding. Legit, it was like this color, of this pear. Like even the texture.
It actually looked like that pear.
Yeah, it looked like this pear, and I was like, I was so offended. Like,
I remember that.
This is a wedding, and you're gonna make me wear a kurta that looks like like a pear.
Well, I think you're being a little bit like.
I still have that kurta, by the way, and I still wear it.
You still have it, right?
Yeah.
I think you're sanitizing it a little bit because the way I remember it, you compared the kurta not to a pear, but to, and I'm going to use the Hindi word first. We used to call it the ulti kurta, which for the non-Hindi speakers out there means the vomit kurta. You like. I still remember that we came back from India. We're unpacking. We're like, oh, and here's like mummy's like wedding outfit, and here's like papa's wedding outfit, and here like Amul, here's your kurta, and you're like, that looks like ulti. That's an ulti kurta. But the thing is, and you see, I'm sorry to be a little defensive here, but you had to remember the kind of person you were at that time.
Yeah.
You were still in that like, I'm gonna be a brahmachari, fetishizing like the simplicity of and like the rugged brahmachari kind of look. So we had to actually find a kurta that we thought was like
I know, and I appreciate that. I don't remember what I ended up wearing, but let's go back to your point. You were saying
at the wedding,
yeah.
when you were wearing something that didn't look like a pear or like a vomited pear or whatever.
Right.
But at the wedding, we were really blessed that Radhanath Swami was there and agreed to speak some words of wisdom and instruction to us. And among the things that he said, I remember he made it a point he turned to both of us actually, and he spoke directly to us. So sometimes with a wedding lecture, it's kind of spoken to everyone assembled there in attendance. But I distinctly remember, because it was such like an intense, heavy moment for me. I remember he turned to each of us and he like looked at us both, and he spoke to us individually. And I remember he said, Venkata Bhatta, Krishangi is not just your wife. She is a precious daughter of Krishna.
Wow.
Who's being entrusted in your care for you to treat her with respect and kind, right? And he's just like, and then he turned, and Krishangi Devi, Venkata Bhatta Prabhu is not, da, da, da. And, on the one hand, it's sort of like, yeah, we all know this. I mean, this is like, I don't think that's any like esoteric, bit of wisdom that like all couples don't sort of know theoretically. But it's amazing to return to an instruction like that or return to wisdom like that. Not when like things are great, but like when things are really challenging and you feel like just being like you said, like this person doesn't get me. This person's like this person's like that. Like, how could she do this? How could he do that? Right. And again, it works for us. It may not work for everyone, but for us, going back to that and just reminding ourselves of that has been huge. The other thing I'll say, and again, if this works for you, more power to you. For us, something we've tried to implement, we haven't always been successful with it, but we try to, if we're in the midst of like an argument, particularly if it's about something that's, let's be honest, like a little trivial, or like, if we're just kind of like getting on each other's nerves.
Right.
We imagine what it would be like to sit down and write a letter to like Radhanath Maharaj, or to like, someone who's like a mentor or a guide or a respected elder, right? And explain like our side of it.
Like at that specific moment?
Like at that moment. Like,
okay.
I'm so irritated because Krishangi is doing this thing, and like she like corrected the way I loaded the dishwasher, and like how can she think like I'm so stupid, I don't know how to like load a dishwasher, and like why is she always nagging me, why is she right? If I stop and I'm like, because in the heat of the moment, my ego, my false ego, my ahankar, like wants to convince me that like I'm the most brilliant person in the world. Like, you are so brilliant, Venkata, and like this, how dare this mere mortal try to tell you that like you don't know what you're doing loading a dishwasher. Like, who does she think she is? Like, and like you have such a brilliant point to make. Don't let her get away with that. Like, hammer it into her, win the argument, right? Like, like I come from that background also. I did like speech and debate. I was like, you know, I have a background in law. Like, I can sort of hold my own in an argument. And there's something very gratifying about that. So the ego is like telling me like win your point at all costs, right? Like, you've got an important point to make. The future of the free world hinges on you proving this point about how you can load a dishwasher properly.
Right.
And if I'm able to stop and say, okay, what if I were making that argument to Radhanath Maharaj? What if I was like, Maharaj, I know you're super busy. I need 5 minutes of your time to like let you know about how offensive, you know, your disciple Krishangi was to me about, you know, this dishwasher thing, and how like I'm right about 99% of the time. I wouldn't write that letter.
Because it sounds stupid when you say it like that.
It's completely stupid. It's completely trivial. In the grand scheme of things, like when you have that perspective, it's like it's not even a blip, right? But why do we give so much time to it? Why do we give so much attention to it? So I think, you know, for us, that's been huge. That's helped. And like I said, we're very different people. So differences, I think, they can be wonderful, and they can inspire, right? And I hope that at our best we complement each other, and we're always kind of bettering each other in that way, and opening up new perspectives. But it's not easy, right? It's super challenging. We do everything differently. Like, I can't. It's almost like I can't come up with a specific example because there's so many examples. There's like practically nothing that we approach in the same way.
Amazing.
And somehow, you know, we've made it work.
15 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You were talking about law.
It'd be super awkward if we didn't make it work and we were doing this podcast, though.
That would be.
Then you'd be like, remember when I hated you, and then you treated my sister so badly, and I was right to hate you? Here, take your Mahabharata back and get out of my house, you know? So, thankfully that didn't happen. Because, you know, you can't refund DVDs, man. That's closed down.
You know, one of the DVDs, like 3 of them stopped working, and then I tried to call them, and there was some Indian guy at the end of the line, and he was like, I'm an Edison.
That's racist, man. Why you got to go there? He had to be an Indian guy because he's at a call center.
It wasn't a call center. It was an Edison.
Oh, it was the actual store in Edison. Yeah. Well, you know.
You were talking about law.
I was talking about law.
Tell us a bit about your background in the sense of like career-wise and stuff.
Yeah. So I do have a background in law. I went to law school. I was dating and then eventually, or associating, if we want to clean it up for your audience. I don't know what kind of audience this is. It's a mixed audience. But I was in a serious relationship with your sister all throughout law school. And then, as you may recall, we actually got married literally a week to the day, a week after I graduated law school.
Yeah.
So we got married, you know, I graduated law school. We took some time to like settle into married life, go on a honeymoon, all that good stuff. And then I pretty much jumped into like studying for and taking the bar exam.
Yeah.
To this day, I don't know how I passed, but I somehow passed the New York and New Jersey state bar exams. Applied for jobs, and I actually ended up getting what I thought was my dream job.
Yeah.
Throughout my time in law school, I knew I was never attracted to like corporate law or like finance or immigration, anything, right? Like, even though
it's funny that we said that together.
I know, because we're brown. Or like devote, because like it's like what all brown people and what all like ISKCON devotees like think of the first time you say like law is like H-1B.
R1.
Or R1, right? It's like the two like visa types.
Yeah.
It's like that's like for them that's what law is all about.
Sorry for interrupting.
But I never wanted to do that.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do the entire time I was in law school, or even before that, was I wanted to be in the courtroom. I wanted to litigate. And after my first summer interning at the DA's office, I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to be like a career prosecutor. I want to be in that courtroom. I want to be, a district attorney.
That's awesome. Law and Order.
Law and Order. Law and Order. They used to film Law and Order like right outside the courthouse.
Really?
Yeah. I used to sometimes see them filming and stuff. It was pretty exciting. But I ended up getting that job. I ended up getting the job at the DA's office, being a prosecutor in New York City, in Queens County, which is where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And it was like everything was lining up, right? I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but it's just like amazing when like everything like lines up on paper, right? So it's like, okay, like after this long distance relationship, right? Because Krishangi was in New Jersey finishing up undergrad. I was in DC at law school, right? We were like doing the long distance relationship thing. Okay, like we're married, like we get our first home together, or at least our first apartment together at that time. I got this, I took this like monster exam, got through that, got this job. It was like everything was lining up. And I was like, great, this is it. I'm going to be happy, right? Like, I mean, as happy as anyone can be. And it was really strange, but I have to say, like, if I'm really being honest, probably like less than 3 months into it, the first like crack started to show, and I started to feel like this like nagging, what started out as a very irrational, secret nagging doubt, which was like, something doesn't feel right. Something feels off.
Interesting.
Something is not quite, like, you should be happier. You should be feeling more fulfilled.
What kind of work was that, though? Like,
being at the DA's office?
Yeah, it must have been like I vaguely remember you telling me like some real horrific stuff.
I mean, it was intense work. It was good. You start off at the DA's office, at least in New York. I don't know how it is in other cities, but you start off sort of cutting your teeth on like very low level, what they call misdemeanors, right? So like lower level crimes, right? Higher level crimes are called felonies. Lower level crimes are misdemeanors, and you kind of cut your teeth like learning the ropes on that. They do kind of throw you in, right? So it's very different than what people see on TV. So like in like a Law and Order type of show, you'll see usually one attorney has like one case, like one prosecutor has one case that they're working on for however long the episode is, like 45 minutes but like that's like all you see them doing. In reality, a prosecutor, an assistant district attorney, which is what we were called, we had a caseload of anywhere between, misdemeanors, we would have like between 150 and 200 at a time. What? So you just have like all these cases. Most of them are like real, like kind of throwaway, low level, like, but it really runs a gamut. Some of it gets into some darker stuff. Some of it's just like, I could bore you silly with the number of like public urination cases that people like to pee everywhere except where they're supposed to in Queens County in New York City.
Oh my God.
But like you have all these cases, and that's really how you learn to like just get through, not just arguing when you need to argue, but also learning how to like plea cases out. A lot of people don't realize that most of those cases never see the light of day because you cut a deal with a defense attorney to settle it, out of court, or to settle it without a trial, so that you can focus on the cases that really matter.
Right.
So I did that, and it wasn't uninteresting work. And it wasn't even like that the work wasn't meaningful. In fact, I really, for a variety of reasons, I felt strongly about trying to make a difference with the issue of domestic violence. It's something that was, without going into too much detail, something that I had seen a lot of in terms of friends and family and like my community. And it's something that within like the South Asian community, like many immigrant communities, goes often, sort of swept under the rug and like unreported. And so I felt very strongly about it, and I wanted to pursue it. And I ended up, working in the domestic violence bureau. So I had like domestic violence cases. Oh, wow. I had a huge like caseload of domestic violence cases, and it was really meaningful work. When it was definitely depressing in one sense, or it is really kind of challenges your sense of optimism and hope to see these kinds of like really horrific, nightmarish cases. And I saw my fair share of those, but it was also like incredibly meaningful work. But still, I felt like it's like, this is so important. This work is so meaningful. It's so important. It's like someone's dharma, but it's not my dharma.
Interesting.
And I kept feeling that. And that like little seed that I was talking about, a little seed of doubt, it started growing. And, it's weird. I often speak about this, especially with students, which I can get to a little bit. But like I now work with students in a university setting.
Right, in Princeton, right?
In Princeton, yeah.
Nice.
And often they ask about my story because I guess it is pretty like atypical, right? To go from law to now like doing the work that I do. And often what I'll say to the students is, it's a strange thing when you're doing well at something, right? And you're getting like nothing is wrong on the surface. Like it's one thing, right? If something is wrong, like let's say you apply for a job, you get a job, and then it turns out you're terrible at it.
Right.
It's just not a good fit for you. Like that sucks. It's a terrible feeling. But at least you can articulate it, and at least people around you can see that and go like, no, I'm like, I know that you thought you were going to be like a baker, but like every loaf of bread, it just like comes out like worse than the one before. Like maybe, being a baker is not like the thing for you. Right?
Yeah.
I feel like there's another level of challenge when like on paper or like on its surface, everything should be fine. And you feel like I actually struggled with this for a long time. I struggled with this feeling of like I should be happy. I should be grateful. Like, why am I not?
Yeah.
Why is this not working? And I was just getting worse and worse. And Krishnagi, speaking of like relationships and someone holding up a mirror to you, right? Krishnagi, very much to her credit, and I'm so grateful to her for this. I'll always be grateful to her for this, for many things, but especially for this.
Yeah.
Is she really like called me to task for it? And she was like, what's going on with you? You're not the same person. Like it's like, I mean, it sounds, I'm going to use some strong language here, but like, it was like soul deadening. Like she was like, like you seem like you're like almost like dead inside. Like you come home and the only thing I'd come home and I'd just like watch The Simpsons. Like that was like,
wow.
And not even like with her, I would just like go into like our little, like we had this like guest bedroom with like the TV in it. I would just go in there and just like watch like Simpson reruns just to like veg out. And then I just like, whatever, like
do it again the next day.
Do it again the next day. And she pushed me to like dig deeper and figure out what's going on. And anyway, I mean, to make a long story short, when I did that kind of introspection and talked to her and talked to other people who I trusted and asked for their guidance, I realized that I wasn't feeling fulfilled because I felt called to do something else. And
right.
And what I felt called to do was to do something more explicitly connected to spirituality, to religion, to my own practice, to Hinduism generally.
Right.
And so, some twists and turns later, I resigned the position at the DA's office.
I was going to ask, what did you do after?
I resigned that position, and I was actually going to go back to school, so I was in the process. I don't know if you know this part. I don't know if we ever talked about it, but I was in the process of actually pursuing a graduate study at Oxford. I started learning about the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies, and it's just really great people to study with. And I was going to do, a master's and eventually a PhD in like theology.
Right.
And in the meantime, an opportunity came to actually work for ISKCON full time, to work for ISKCON Communications.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Entering controversial territory.
Why is whenever
I'm looking at your shirt, and it's like I don't know if they can see it, but like Nam's wearing his ISKCON. You made that shirt, right? You designed that shirt. I know you didn't make ISKCON, but you made the shirt.
Yeah, I did. I made the shirt.
And you sold like a bunch of.
I sold a bunch, and a bunch of still sitting in the back of my car.
Do you know any misprint like ISKCON spelled? You ever notice that like ISKCON spelled wrong?
Yeah, ISCKON.
Oh, I hate that so much. Yeah, you see that often like in the Indian media and stuff. Like
yeah.
Anyway, if you have any of the ones that are spelled wrong, I'd like one. Just 'cause like I'd like to be like an ironic hipster and just like. Because I'm like too cool to wear like the regular one, but the one that's like intentionally spelled wrong,
right?
Like, I'll take one of those. No, it's funny, like I this is a bit of a tangent, but I don't know if it's still. This is like years ago, a couple of years ago. There was like this Facebook group. You ever get added to like a Facebook group and you don't know like why or how?
Oh my God, yeah.
So this is like, I guess it was like really in vogue to do that, and I'm terrible with Facebook, but I guess I was a little bit more active on Facebook at the time. And someone added me to a group, and the group was just called ISKCON. Like, I guess someone...
Oh, I think I was on that, too.
You were on, I think, like, someone, I'm guessing, like, outside of the U.S., just based on the sort of the language, it didn't seem like English was their first language, but, like, whoever was moderating that, but they created a group that was just called, like, ISKCON.
ISKCON, yeah.
And I got joined to it, which is, like, okay. But then I remember, I don't know, I just, like, at a certain point, maybe I was just, like, cranky or something, but, like, it was, like, filling up, like, my news feed, and it was, like, stuff that, like wasn't entirely relevant. It wasn't like that group was being used to like discuss like interesting things like the history of ISKCON and where ISKCON, like that kind of stuff I'm into.
Yeah.
But it was, I don't even know like what it was just like not doing it for me. And so so I did that thing where you leave a group, right?
Yeah. Oh.
So I went to click on it, and it's funny because I don't know if Facebook still does this, but like a pop-up thing comes up. So a pop-up came up and it said, "Are you sure you want to leave ISKCON?" And it was like one of those things. Like I think it was like late at night or something, and I was like, "Oh no! Like what is this?" Like it was
that happens on Facebook actually.
It was like creepy, man.
It's like when someone likes someone's page, so it's like it's like, oh, my friend Nimai. It's like Nimai likes Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
And then you comment like, obviously.
It's like, yeah, like who doesn't like Srila Prabhupada? But this was like one of those things where it was like, God, I hope it's not one of those like. Anyway, I'm worrying like, did I not like Srila Prabhupada? Like, are people like anyway, but in this thing,
ISKCON Communications, right?
ISKCON Communications. So so I and I am so grateful for that actually. To be quite honest, I mean, it, like anything else, definitely had its challenges. But it was an amazing experience, and I think it allowed me to really make that leap and to start to dig deeper into like what inspires me.
Right.
ISKCON Communications was, and I think although I'm a little bit out of the loop now, as far as I know, continues to be just really forward thinking, really progressive in many ways. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of things that we take for granted in ISKCON, if you're a part of that organization or identify with that organization, a lot of really the best of sort of forward-thinking, saner ISKCON, if I could use that phrase, came as a direct result of ISKCON Communications. And one of the things that really inspired me, and I'm going to shout out Anuttama Prabhu, who was the Minister of Communication, I think he still is, and was very much a mentor and a guide and a really, really dear friend to me. One of the things that I think he feels and felt very strongly about, and that ISKCON Communications really took as its like kind of core principle, is that ISKCON Communications is not meant to just do like PR. It's like not just like fluff. It's not just being a mouthpiece, but it is being a mirror. So again, like back to the mirror thing, right? Just like we can do that in relationships.
That's brilliant.
But I like ISKCON Communications, I think in a certain way, and now I'm like thinking about it, and I'm like, wow, I guess I'm really drawn to that idea. But there's something amazing about pushing an organization, like championing and recognizing and promoting all the great stuff that's already happening, but really helping to be a part of creating the good stuff that happens, and pushing an organization to think more deeply and to grow and to develop and when it needs some course correction, to like not being afraid to do that too.
Right.
And I think ISKCON Communications at its best was doing that. I think for me, it came to a point where I feel like I spent as much time as I was meant to spend in that role. And it's kind of like a razor's edge, right? Because I think to play a role like that, you have to hold a certain kind of optimism.
Oh my gosh,
and a certain kind of hopefulness, and it's a really tough balance. And again, my hats off to Anuttama Prabhu and to my dear friend and god sister Parijata in Mumbai, and so many other devotees who do communication seva. Because I think, again, at its best, you're like simultaneously holding on to like such a critical and realistic lens. Like you're actually seeing things for what they are, and you're calling out what needs to be called out, and you're not like burying your head in the sand or sticking it in the clouds, right? But you're also remaining hopeful and optimistic and a team player, and you're recognizing baby steps when baby steps need to be taken. And I think, if I'm just being totally honest, I reached a point where I felt like I could no longer do that in the same way, and I felt like I could see in a certain way that, and part of this was just growing older and going through my own sort of, love-hate relationship with institutions and organizations and how I define my spiritual life, and kind of like, I think the kind of the spiritual equivalent of being like an angsty teenager. Like when you're an angsty teenager, you're like, shut up, mom, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like, like you don't actually hate your mom, but you're like, I just need some space. Like, no one understands me. So maybe it was a little bit of that, like on a spiritual level, where I just kind of needed to go, okay, I need to like sort of figure out stuff for myself in a way that being a spokesperson, you can't really do that, right? Because everything you're doing, everything you're saying, even in a semi like private setting, right, could potentially be taken as like the view or the opinion or the position of this organization. You're like just tied so much. Anyway, all this to say, I think I reached a point where I could see the dangers of like falling into real like cynicism.
Right.
And I kind of flirted with that cynicism for a little while. And I think if Krishangi were here, she'd be like, a little while, like, like, maybe it was a little bit longer than a little while. But I saw enough of that cynical, I saw like what happens when I get cynical, and it's not a pretty picture, and it's not the kind of person I want it to be or want to be.
Right.
And I realized at that point, I mean, there's other stuff happening in my life, including, other opportunities coming my way, including this one at Princeton. But I realized that, as valuable as that experience was with doing the communication seva, that it was better for me to step into another role that felt a little bit, again, more true to what I felt called to do, and more true to where I was at as far as my own spiritual practice, but also where I feel inspired to give back.
Right. I think a lot of devotees or a lot of people feel like that, kind of cynical, because, personally, I work in, management to a certain extent at the temple, at our local temple.
Sure.
And I remember the times when I was just coming to the temple, not seeing any kind of behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to go back to that, because what you see when you're either managing or you're doing communications or PR, whatever it is for an institution, it's like you see, like what you said, you see kind of the things that you don't want to see, that are kind of ugly in a sort of way.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of maturity, and it takes a lot of I think, again, that balance of like maintaining that realistic perspective and not pretending it doesn't, that the bad stuff or the ugly stuff or the challenging stuff doesn't exist, but also maintaining that hope. It's a tough balancing act, man, and
really,
not everyone can do it.
Yeah, hats off to the devotees who've been doing it for many, many years. It's
Definitely.
like it's like really a thankless task, honestly, to do that.
Yeah. Well, when I was my first part-time job, because I was like one of these kids, like my parents were like, summer vacation did not mean just like lazing around the house. It meant like either going like to the library. It meant like getting a jump on studying for your SATs, like when you're 9. But when I was 15, it meant like my dad was like, all right, you're gonna get a part-time job, like not because the money, like we needed or I needed money, but like just because like I don't want to see you lazing around the house. I want you to go and like do something. Yeah. And so, like, true story, like I went out and I like filled out a bunch of job applications. I really wanted to work at Barnes & Noble. Krishangi's first job was at Barnes & Noble. I've always been envious of her for that. To me, it was like a dream job. I how much I love books. And, I just like, that was like it for me. Didn't get the job at Barnes & Noble. The only callback that I got, my 15-year-old self, was a little donut shop called Dunkin' Donuts. Interesting. And my first job ever was at Dunkin' Donuts. Mm-hmm. I was 15, and I wasn't a strict vegetarian at that time. Right. So I didn't grow up vegetarian, and I think by that time maybe I was vegetarian but still ate eggs or something. Yeah. But I remember I ate Dunkin' Donuts occasionally, and I was like, okay, well at least the upside is I'm gonna like eat free donuts, right? And what do you think happens now? I'm like a week into the job, you see how the donuts are made. You see what happens behind the scenes, and I don't think I ever ate a donut after that, like a Dunkin' Donuts donut after that. I was like traumatized. And I wouldn't let my family eat it. They were like, bring home donuts. And I was like, nah, you don't want the donuts. I was like, nah, bro, you don't want the donut. No, but I bring that up because I remember even wanting to want the donuts again. Because you're like, oh, like I really want to have the desire for this donut. Right. But you can't unsee how the donut is made. And I feel like being in working in management or doing anything behind the scene, attending GBC meetings, it's like on the one hand, there's something really compelling and attractive and almost like it's the mystique of what happens behind closed doors. Right. But there's some challenging stuff, and you can't unsee how the donut is made. And right. I think I've seen how ISKCON makes its donuts, and it's hard to unsee it. I don't know. That's gonna be weird. I hope maybe Nimai will edit that out.
No, this is all unedited.
It's actually worse if you edit it out, because then I'll be like, I've seen how it's gone beep beep beep. And it just sounds like I'm saying something far worse. So.
Right. Now, so then when you left that, it kind of evolved into like I remember like when that opportunity opened up in Princeton, because I was living in the ashram at the time, and one devotee from there was also going for this position of the director of Hindu life at Princeton. Yeah. So what do you do there now? Like, I know I understand you just went to Govardhan Eco Village with students and stuff. That sounds awesome. Like, tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. Well, it's so the devotee that you're referring to. That was an interesting experience, by the way. Like, I don't know if you've ever done anything like that, where like you are competing for something with like a very close friend or a godbrother or someone, and that was an interesting dynamic. It was like we were both kind of going for the same position at the same time. Quick story with that is like one of my visits to Princeton, because Princeton, when they interview for positions, I guess they're like very thorough. So we had like multiple interviews, and you had multiple rounds of interviews. I think my first one was on the phone, and then there was like an in-person, and there was a second in-person, and one, I think in my second in-person interview, it came down to like me and this other devotee and someone else. I think it was like the three of us.
Yeah.
Maybe there were more, but I distinctly remember hearing about at least the three of us. And one of the people at Princeton, who's no longer there actually, she's moved on to another position, but at the time, she saw me. And she was like, oh, it's so nice to have you back here. And like, and then she starts like asking me these questions or talking about things in a way that like, it made it clear she thought I was this other dude. Like she thought I was the other devotee,
Yeah.
Cause like, I guess maybe we have some kind of resemblance, or maybe she's just racist and thought all like brown people look alike. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure, but it made me feel funny. No, but it was like a strange thing, cause she was like asking all these questions that like, because I know him, I knew like we're more related to him, and it was like one of those awkward situations where you don't know if you should correct the person or just like go with it.
Yeah.
So I just like went with it. But anyway, but yeah, that was like 10 years ago. So believe it or not, I've been doing.
You've been there for 10 years.
Almost 10 full years. Yeah, I started in the fall of 2008.
That's right. Oh my gosh.
So it's been almost a full 10 years, and it's amazing. It's just like it's hard for me to articulate it in a way that doesn't just like sort of fall back on saying these things that are very like abstract and cliche and theoretical. But it's the best way I can describe it is like my most challenging day, my so-called worst day at Princeton, compared to like my best day at the DA's office, for instance, right? My worst day, my most challenging day, the day that I fall flat on my face and everything seems to be going wrong, is still at core more nourishing and more inspiring, and it feeds something in me.
Wow.
And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and because people ask, right, like increasingly, especially people of a certain generation now that like, a lot of people that I used to work with, when Krishnanga and I were doing a lot of the youth stuff in different communities, a lot of you all, and maybe even folks younger than you, are in places in their lives where they're like kind of entering the workforce or thinking about career, or maybe like already on their first or second or even third careers in some cases, and trying to figure this whole thing out. And one of the things that I've been reflecting on, and I try to share with people, is I think sometimes we talk about like following your dream or your passion. But actually, the more I think about it, I'm not sure I really like the idea of like what you feel passionate about, right? Because I think, and we know this from even the kind of like metaphysical or philosophical framework that the Gita and other texts, Upanishads and Vedantic texts give us with like the gunas, right? So this like framework of the gunas, even the word like passion is very much connected to, or it's often given as a translation to rajas, to the state of being rajasic, right? And I think there's something a little too rajasic about pinning everything on what you're passionate about, especially for those of us who maybe can get passionate about a lot of things, and then it doesn't quite last, or right? Like the novelty wears off, and like what do you
this
do
podcast.
Then? The novelty's already worn off.
No. I'm saying no. I'm being silly. Like that I got into a lot of things and been passionate about a lot of things, and then they just don't last. Like,
that's not true, Nam. You're still flying kites, right?
I'm just gonna say that. I was just gonna say that.
You remember
or
the
like
kite
Pokemon or something. Like not the recent Pokemon. Like when Pokemon was cool when I was a kid.
Listen, Pokemon. Pokemon's like a sore spot for me.
Why?
Right? Pokemon is like I missed Pokemon. Like I was like
You did, yeah.
I'm like that like lost generation, right? Like I missed Pokemon when it was like a thing.
Yeah.
And then I missed it again when it was like a thing again, when it like made like that like somehow Pokemon for me represent like Pokemon is like a reminder for how like old and out of touch I am. Like, and I have like a moment that like crystallizes this. And this moment,
Tell us.
I don't want to like I don't want to embarrass you. I don't want to put you on the spot. But this moment was actually your wedding reception, right? So your wedding reception in
I remember that.
in England,
Yes.
right? In that lovely place near the manor, right? It was a great reception. Everything was going swimmingly, and it was like I think the dance floor had opened up. There was some dancing. We were all having a good time. I was like, yeah, like this is cool. Like I could hold my own on the dance floor a little bit. I was getting.
Oh, are you kidding?
I was getting the the attaboys from all the youngsters, all the youth. They were like, wow, like Vibert, like he can still do a little bhangra. Like that's pretty cool. And I was like, yeah, like that's cool. We're all like one big happy family. Like yeah, we're not that different. And then I don't know if
I remember it so well.
Someone, I don't know if this was you or Tulsi or Nimai or I don't know who this was, but someone is like for the final song. Oh man! I think you had the DJ play it or something, and you played like the Pokemon theme song.
Yeah.
And you all sang it.
Like in unison.
Like in unison. It was like this moment.
Yeah.
It was like the flash mob. Pokemon, like this is our defining, like this is like the soundtrack of our life, and it's literally it's like all of you doing that.
Yeah.
It's like your dad like off to the side like doing japa somewhere, right? Like just like Haribo, like this is great. I could care less about Pokemon. Just more opportunity to like chant the holy name, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like me and Krishangi, and we're like literally standing there looking at everyone else like blank faces, and I'm like, do you have any idea? No. She's like, no.
Oh, man.
And we're both just like, like twiddling our thumbs, feeling old. So that for me is Pokemon. Pokemon, like, nah. It makes me feel super, super old.
What were we talking about before that?
I don't know. Where were we?
Oh, when I was saying how I interrupted you, I said that's something that you're passionate about.
Oh, right.
It doesn't last. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? And you were passionate about Pokemon. And the kite thing, for those who don't know, is like Nam went through this. I think it's like funnier to us. Like to me, it's like the most hilarious story.
It is very hilarious.
And you try telling someone, and they're like, "So a guy was into kites." Like that's pretty much the story.
It's not very funny. Yeah.
It's like, but Nam went through this thing where he was like really into kites. Like he was like super like intensely like I don't know, like researching kites. And
I had this huge kite, and anyway, it's stupid.
But that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
That's passion.
Right.
And while
it's so rajasic. It's so fantastic.
What? I'm sorry. Where did you get that from? It's so rajasic. Did you just do this on the podcast?
Yeah. It's just a random thing that I say.
That's so strange.
Nimai's dying.
Nimai, is this like a normal thing? I don't know what to like.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Do you have more like lyrics to this? I want to hear.
No.
Do you change your voice, just like your voice modulator? It's so Tomasic. No, you don't hit those low notes for the Tomas. No, okay. But this is my issue with following your passion, which Rajas gets a bad name, right? Because
of course, yeah.
And Rajas is really important, right? Like this podcast
to get things done.
This podcast wouldn't exist without Rajas, right? There was a certain like passion, and there was a certain Rajas that like translated the idea into the reality, right? Like, and I'm so impressed. I know you all can't see this, but this is like an amazing setup with like all sorts of like compressors and decompressors and decongestants. And there's like a humidifier going. There's like all this stuff going on here. I don't know what's going on. Like, I feel like it's just it takes work. I think people don't realize that. They're like, oh, like Nam's like just goofing around because he has some extra like this takes work, and I think that work requires passion. Right, and the creativity requires passion. So I think Rajas does get a bad name, but I do feel like the more I reflect on it, that like you can't pin everything on Rajas. You can't pin everything on passion. And so for me, what I found to be, in some sense, a much more I think a deeper and a more helpful, more constructive tool to help like figure out things like calling and dharma and seva and like where am I meant to be and like, you know, what am I meant to do is this idea of nourishment. Is really like what's satisfying for me on that like that deeper level. What's that thing that feeds me, right? Because I think there's certain things like that can be very tiring, but still like you end up being nourished by it. And there are other things that I think are tiring and then they drain you and they exhaust you. And so for me, it's not like an exact science, right? It's more art than science. But I think for anyone, this is the advice that I give, for anyone who's trying to discern their dharma, their purpose, their calling, right? All this kind of really deep, subtle stuff that we don't, as a community, as a culture, as a society, we don't often speak about. Pay attention to what nourishes you. Pay attention to what exhausts and drains you. Pay attention to what is life-giving and what's like life-sapping.
Right.
And it could be very subtle and here's where I feel like sometimes it can, I mean, it requires, like you were saying earlier, maturity. I think there's another thing that requires maturity and leaning on mature people to guide you. Sometimes the thing that drains you can be something that, like on its face, is spiritually inspiring and uplifting, right?
Interesting.
And that everyone else is like, oh, like this is like the most wonderful service and like you're so fortunate to like have this opportunity. And I'm not saying we shouldn't push ourselves to do things that feel a little bit, you know, a little bit of discomfort is good. It's not that everything should be, you know, just like the perfect fit for you. But I think if something is draining and it's not nourishing you and replenishing you and like inspiring from within in that way, it's probably not going to be it's not going to be sustainable.
Right. The thing that I think about is that, for example, like you do something for work that you enjoy or that, you know, sustains you and that makes you feel like, you know, happiness and whatever. But for someone like, for me, or maybe the majority of other people, it's that we do a certain work so we can do those things that nourish us. Yeah. So like we do a 9-to-5 job, which we're like not crazy about, but it's not like super suffering or anything, but we're just like, it's what we do just to get the bills. So we can do the things that we want, which is like, you know, just do a podcast or do a sport or some kind of recreation or something we're passionate about. Yeah. So like, I guess it's an amazing blessing to actually have those two things in one.
Well, it is a blessing, and I do feel blessed, or at least, you know, I have glimpses of feeling blessed, and when I'm not organically, naturally feeling blessed, I try to make it a practice.
Right.
I think it's one of these things that like appreciating blessings can also be a practice. And for me, I know like it's part of it is reminding myself that like, I get to do this thing that's like incredible. Like I had this, I'll just give you a couple of anecdotes, or not even anecdotes, but I'll just tell you a little bit more about what I do. I mean, I get to, this semester, we're launching, or I should say I'm launching, because it's sort of like a one-man operation at this point. Right. But I'm launching this new program that I'm calling the Examined Life Project.
Cool. Examined Life. The Examined
Life. And it comes from, I think it's, gosh, I should know this, but I'm going to say like Socrates. I think it's a Socrates quote. Someone can, quick, Nimai, fact check this. I think it's a Socrates quote, but it you know, where there's just this idea of the examined life is the life worth living.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm, I've heard that.
And so I'm really interested in what does that examined life look like, and what does it look like within our tradition. And when I say our tradition, in this case, I mean more generally the Hindu tradition, which is, you know, something we can talk about. But my role is to care for and to engage with and inspire the Hindu community at Princeton, and there's lots of diversity within that community. But anyway, as I was reflecting on this idea of the examined life, I was just like, what if there was a program where you could, where I could just sit with students, like one-on-one, and we could read a text together. Like, it's not like mind-blowing. It's like a pretty simple idea, I think. But
like
it's like,
what kind of text?
Like we sit, so we're doing this with the Upanishads. And the reason I decided to choose the Upanishads is I think, first of all, in the last couple of years, I've sort of rediscovered them. I think the first time I read some of the major Upanishads, a lot of it just went over my head, and I was like, I just wasn't quite feeling it. And particularly coming from a background of bhakti practice, some of it can feel very dry. But in the last couple of years, I have sort of rediscovered these texts, and they're amazing. And I think there's a lot of sort of in between the lines reading that needs to be done. I mean, the Upanishads are texts that are crafted in such a way that they're designed to be unpacked. They're not designed. It's a body of sacred texts that's not designed to be like pulled off a shelf the way we do in like sort of the postmodern age of like everything you do is like on your own, or like where you just like open it up and just start reading wherever you want. It's like classically they're designed to be unpacked and to be sort of explored with guidance.
Right.
And I was fortunate to be able to do this, and just like I said, rediscovered these texts. And so I came up with this idea, and we haven't done it yet. We're just sort of what is it called, unveiling it or rolling it out. But the idea is to set up time one-on-one with students. So students apply, it's by choice, whoever wants to. And students apply, and then we match up our schedules, and we set a time each week to meet once a week to read an Upanishad together.
Wow.
And to just like read it together and then just talk about it and try to unpack it. But the idea, and where I'm trying to put a little bit of a more modern spin on it, is to use the text as a way of talking about life. Because sometimes it's very intimidating, particularly if you're coming from a culture where you don't have someone that you like talk to about your spiritual life or your emotional life or your your inner life, so to speak. It can be very intimidating to just sit down and just start doing that. And so the idea is to use this study of the Upanishads as a kind of a springboard to just talk about life and growth and
that's fantastic.
And anyway, it could end up being an amazing experience, and it could flop and I fall on my face and next semester I don't do it anymore. But just to be in a position where I can do this for a living, where I can think about stuff like this and try to execute it, and not to sound too corny about it, but to try to make a difference in people's lives, particularly in a stage of life that, if you think about it, is like, at least in our culture and really in sort of modern global culture, is like the most formative time in someone's life. Like, think about everything that happens between the ages of, let's say 17 or 18 and 28, 29, even like up to 30, right? If you just look at those years, right? Like, everything is happening in someone's formation. Like, this is the time where you're like figuring out who you are, what you believe in, what you value, who your closest friends are going to be in most cases, right? Often, not always, but often, this is a time in your life where you're going to meet the person who's going to be your partner, ostensibly for life. This is where you're figuring out things like your diet, your dietary choices. Most people turn to, alternative diets like vegetarianism, veganism, whatever, at this stage in their life. It's very, very few people, it happens, but very few people, are capable of making such radical changes at other times in their life. So much happens in this one period. Sexuality, or people figuring themselves, coming out of the closet, all this stuff happens in this one magical time in your life. And not only does it happen, but there's like systems in place to assist it happening and to support it happening.
And there's a person there, like,
and there are people there,
basically. You're there to.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, this is what I'm trying to do, and this is when I guess on those days where I'm like, what do I do again? Like, why am I here? It's like been 10 years. Like, is this going anywhere? Because we all have those moments of doubt, right? I think on those days, one of the things I try to tell myself is like, this is such an amazing time and such an important, critical, crucial time in the lives of these people. And I'm going to say it, right? Like, I mean, it may sound a little elitist, but like, I get to do this not just at anywhere, but like at Princeton University, which is the #1 college or university in the country, according to whoever it is, U.S. News and World Report, like 7th year in a row, ranked #1.
Wow.
And I'm saying that only because it's like, this is important. This is an important place. It's an important stage in people's lives. And these people are going to go on many of them, all of them in their own ways, are going to go on to do amazing things in the world, in their own lives, in the lives of those they interact with. These are going to be like the game changers. These are going to be the people that are going to like save our planet, right? And are going to like course correct from all the craziness of, you know, that whatever, I don't want to get political, but, you know, like it's a crazy, scary world. And these are people that are being equipped in some ways to address and even remedy these significant, you know, really big deal issues in our world. And like, what can we do to support and serve them at this time where they're trying to figure themselves out? Wow. And can I be someone that can be a part of either introducing or deepening or curating, I like to use the word curating, but curating their spirituality and their spiritual laws at this time, right? And I get to do that, and I get paid to do that, and I get to do it with amazing people, and I get to really bring my full self to that. I mean, I'm very open about my own practice, about my my teachers and the texts that inspire me, and the, you know, the particular lineage that, you know, everyone knows that I'm a Krishna, you know, aspiring Krishna Bhatta in this, you know, tradition of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Right. And I get to do that. Now, the sort of flip side of that, where for me it's become challenging and but I think challenging in a very healthy way, is I have to constantly check my motives, because I have it's so integrated that if I'm not careful, I might find myself slipping into that territory of being maybe not the healthiest influence, and maybe, you know, having my own agenda, trying to get people to basically trying to pressure people and trying to be more of like a missionary than a support system and a minister and a, you know, a chaplain. And I don't think, and I recognize that there may be some people listening who go, well, what's so wrong with that? Like, shouldn't you be doing that? Shouldn't you be spreading the good word of the Lord and Savior? No, shouldn't you be, you know, spreading the message of Mahaprabhu? And my answer to that is yes. I think we absolutely should be, and I have this amazing opportunity. But I think the way to do it for me is to really bring that whole self, and bring that bhakti, and bring my own modest attempts to try to follow and imbibe what, you know, the best of what I have been given in this tradition and through my own teachers, but not to do it in a way that's beating anyone over the head, or that is, you know, I'm not there for conversion. I'm not there. It's contrary to several very irritating emails and messages that I get, maybe many is strong, that I occasionally get. I'm not running a preaching program at Princeton. I'm not like churning out.
Do people say that?
People will be like, oh, Prabhu, you have the preaching program at Princeton, right? I mean, some of this is like, this is a different paradigm for a lot of people, and I get that. Yeah. But that's not, you know, if I'm trying to be honest with myself and trying to be true to myself. That's not what I feel called to do. That's not what I feel inspired to do. That's not what I feel I've been advised, and that's not what I feel the mood is from the teachers that I respect most, including my own Diksha Guru. Right. I feel like I'm there to share a perspective whenever it's welcome, to meet people where they're at, and to help them. Some of the most meaningful interactions I've had with students have been students who have a practice that is philosophically very different from you know, Krishna Bhakti or Vaishnava practice, Vaishnava Siddhanta. And for me, I feel like my role is to support them in that, and to help them go deeper in their own practice in a more authentic way, not for them to become more like me. Does that make sense? Is that
no? Oh, of course, yeah. You know, I'd love to unpack that more, but we're just like Jay Jagannath. I'm so bummed. Like Jay Jagannath's episode, like when we started to get there, it became like, okay, we're out of the time. Yeah. So,
well, thank you for saying that, because I feel like I was, you know, as I mentioned to you offline, like I was super nervous. Jai Jagannath's an incredibly like difficult person to follow.
I think you did a fantastic job. Honestly, I did.
Anyway, and like I was talking to Tulsi about this. I mean, there's that tendency to constantly compare
Right.
I love this quote. I'm not sure who it's originally attributed to, but I actually heard it from, I heard Radhanath Swami quoting it, and it just really touched me, and I like to return to it. But it's a famous quote. It goes, "Comparison is the thief of joy."
Right.
And
wow.
And I really, there's so much truth there, right? There's this tendency, and it just takes the joy. It takes that, it takes the like the rasa out of everything.
Yeah.
Because we're not present anymore, right? We're constantly doing that, but it's so tempting. And I think even I like to, talk a big game about, and I like to try to give all this like wise counsel and good advice to others. But if I'm honest with myself, man, I struggle with that so much.
Yeah.
So full disclosure, I came on with a lot of nervousness, feeling like he's a tough act to follow.
The more we do it, the better it gets.
I hope so.
I'm new to this as well, the whole podcasting thing, but
I noticed you had, when you like you entitle each podcast with the numbers, right?
Right.
So this is like number 002.
Right.
And I think there's something really important about the fact that you didn't just put number 2, but you put 002.
Right. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about that. Was that intentional? Did you?
Yeah, one of my favorite podcasters does that.
Okay.
So I thought like, why I should do that, because I feel like I'm going to do this a lot, because I feel it's a good idea. It's unique, and we get to meet cool people like yourself, hear what they're about, hear what they're doing, what the story is, and it was intentional.
No, and I feel like that's a powerful thing, because what it communicated to me was like, like he's serious enough about this that he's putting it out that like this is not going to be like, I'm not going to do 3 of these, and then like go on to the next kite flying adventure, right? It's like I'm like, it's bold, man. It's like it requires a certain amount of putting yourself out there to say like, I'm hoping for this thing to go into like the triple digits as far as the number of podcasts that we're able to do.
Yeah.
And I really respect that. And I do hope that, I hope I pass the audition, as the Beatles.
Oh, are you kidding?
I hope,
I think some people are going to be. I think some people are going to be a bit disappointed that we didn't discuss what was said on
the Hinduization of ISKCON.
The Hinduization of ISKCON.
Yeah.
We'll take that
we'll
for
come
another.
Back to that one.
We'll come back to that, and another. A few other things that I definitely want you to unpack. But for now, we have to do. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to, because we've been speaking so much about Krishangi,
right?
That I have to like.
Oh yeah, tell that. Yeah,
I have to like call her out, and I think part of this is just because we share, Namarasa and I share a certain, I don't know, we have a bond over this, because we both know Krishangi in this unique way, and we know her kind of her quirks with this, and I think to me one of the most hilarious things is the fact that she still doesn't like.
She doesn't know what a.
She still doesn't get what you're doing.
Like,
and I love the fact
she's
that
like, you're doing a podcast, and
she's
like, what's a podcast?
Well, it's like she doesn't, because I tried talking to her about this, and it's not even like what's a podcast. It's like she just doesn't see the value in it. She's like, why can't you just sit and talk to him like in private? She's like, she doesn't understand the concept of a talk show. I'm trying to explain. I'm like, so you think like Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake should just go sit at it, at a cafe and just have a private conversation, and then of course then she's like, you're not Justin Timberlake, and I was like, okay, fair. I like the fact that she didn't say you weren't Jimmy Fallon.
Right.
She took the opportunity, right? Mirror. She took the opportunity to hold. But so I think for in a certain way she doesn't get this. I think her like experience with like watching videos online is like watching like cooking videos on Facebook with like without putting the audio on. This is like a thing that Krishan, I don't know how many other people do this, but like she refuses to put the audio on the video, so she just like watches like muted like videos on Facebook.
She's so funny. We love her though.
But she, so she was a little concerned about this, and I have to share this. I know I'm going to embarrass her a little bit, but can I share it?
Please.
So this actually happened. As I'm
we'll end with this, and then we'll go to the.
All right, and then we'll go to this. And thank you. You've been really patient.
No, please.
But as I'm leaving the house to come here, because Princeton's a little bit of a distance, so I had to drive. As I'm leaving the house, I'm literally walking out the door, walking towards the car, and we say our goodbyes. And Krishangi, her like final advice to me, the last thing she calls out to me, and this is, I can't even make this up. The last thing she says to me is, don't say anything you wouldn't feel comfortable saying in front of Maharaj or Gauranga Prabhu. Like, this is what she leaves me with. Like, I'm already feeling nervous, and that's what she leaves me with. And then I'm like, okay, I get the kind of the Maharaj part, but then I'm like, Gauranga Prabhu? And then she goes, you know he's on Facebook. So, anyway, Krishnagi, I hope
Oh man.
I hope this passes muster.
We love you.
I'm not sure if Maharaj or Gurunga Prabhu, how entertaining they would have found this, but hopefully I can stand by in whatever I've spoken here, and hopefully we can have some more conversations.
Definitely, dude. We're definitely having you back. Let's go to the quick fire round. Nimai, we need sound effects for this next time. Let's make it happen. Do.
I thought he was going to be like, Nimai, we need sound effects, and then they were going to be like,
No.
sound effects.
We have to work on it.
He's like, Nimai, when I get to my third guest, who I really care about, like, we'll have real sound effects. This guy that I hate, like, I just gave him, a cup of fake coffee, and I'm gonna.
All right, you know how this goes, right?
I think I do. You're gonna ask me questions, and I'm gonna give really long, drawn-out answers.
No.
Is that how it
This
goes?
is a
No.
quick
fire.
fire. Quick fire.
Quick fire. Go.
If I gave you $10,000 tomorrow, what would you do with it?
I would invest it in. No, I wouldn't invest it. I would. It's gonna sound boring. I would put it in my bank account.
Oh, come on. Everyone
Sorry,
says
that was Jai's answer, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't put it in my bank account.
What would you do?
I would. Gosh, this is embarrassing. I haven't quite gotten to setting up Shruti's college account.
Oh man.
I'd probably do that
You probably shouldn't say that.
She's 8 now, and by the way, do you do a thing where people send in donations, or can I send you my what is that called?
GoFundMe.
GoFundMe. Can I send you my GoFundMe?
No, you can't. Okay.
For my child to go to
Next
Ivy
one.
League school. Okay, next one.
What person has had the greatest influence in your life and why?
These are the same questions you asked Jai Jagannath. Do you do the same?
No, they're not.
They're not.
No.
These are the exact same question.
No, they're not.
They're totally the same. The person I think that has had the most impact on my life, I'm going to say Radhanath Swami. I'm going to say my guru.
Nice.
But yeah, it's just constantly inspires me. And just when I think I've, heard it all, and I there's always something new to learn, and he's constantly opening up my heart, which
Amen
I
to
realize
that.
needs a lot of opening. So
Nimai, no time we need new questions. What has helped you overcome difficult times in life?
good humor, I think, like maintaining a sense of humor and trying to laugh and make other people laugh.
What has been the strongest factor for you in achieving your goals in life?
Knowing who to turn to for guidance and advice and blessings.
If the world's infrastructure collapsed and there was no more electricity or gas or anything, where would I find you and what would you be doing?
True answer is you would probably find me like sitting in a closet somewhere, like shaking my phone and like trying to swipe and like being like it's all good. But my official answer is I think you would find me at the Govardhan Eco Village.
Nice.
Trying to
GEV.
Trying to embrace going off the grid and living by some bhakti eco principles.
Nice. Bhakti eco principles.
I just coined that.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Bhakti eco principles.
That sounds like a
that sounds like a thing.
That sounds like a thing. That's totally a thing.
Your
Bhakti Center, are you listening? Make that a thing.
Your most often used word.
If I'm being honest, like probably I'm
Nice.
I'm a valley girl at heart, and I think I use the word like a million. Probably in this podcast, I used it a million times.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in New York City. I was born and raised in New York.
Nice. All right. Well, that's all the time we have. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
This has been awesome.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Let's have you on again. Let's unpack a few things, more details, and Hinduization of ISKCON next time, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to.
Maybe.
But thanks to all my viewers for watching. Thanks to Nimai. Thanks to Tulsi. Thanks to Venkata Bhatta for coming over. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for the fake coffee, Tulsi. I loved it.
Thanks.